Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 864 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened across NXT and AEW, but not only that, we're going to touch on some WWE items off the top of the show, and the main event of this program is going to be your AEW Revolution 2026 Ultimate Preview. So much performance-enhancing audio. Getting ready for your ear holes. You're not going to want to miss a second of it as this podcast continues. On the way into the show, allow me to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And this Sunday, you can vote in pre- and post-show polls ahead of and following AEW Revolution. We will factor your grades into our AEW Revolution Instant Analysis podcast, which will be released either late Sunday night or possibly Monday morning, early afternoon. The reason for the potential delay is that, and I can't believe AEW booked the show on this day, Sunday is Selection Sunday, and March Madness is one of the biggest days of the year for the Silver King in my full-time job, which of course takes precedence over this podcast. So forget about me though for a minute. There's, to my knowledge, really not that much happening on Saturday. I think perhaps the Oscars are Saturday, and AEW is more concerned going up against the Oscars than Selection Sunday. And I presume that's because Selection Sunday happens earlier in the evening. It's around, I want to say 6 or 7 o'clock. And they figure, well, once everyone gets the bracket, they can just come on and then go watch our pay-per-view. But I mean, that takes up a lot of air and a lot of attention. Maybe it's just the Silver King that it messes with in terms of my schedule, because I have a lot of work to do that evening. But it's going to complicate matters in terms of watching Revolution in a manner that I can break it down and deliver thoughtful analysis, grades, and a complete review on the show. The goal is to do that. If I can make it at some point before, 2 a.m. Eastern, then that is what I will do. And if not, I'll probably get some shut-eye and try to make sure you get the show Monday by noon. That way you have it for lunch hour and the rest of your day. But one way or another, you will have an AEW Revolution Instant Analysis podcast. The only question is going to be, how instant is the analysis? I mentioned following us on Twitter and Blue Sky at Getting Overcast. You can use the exact same handle on YouTube. When you subscribe over there, you can listen to the show and you can watch full-length video interviews as well. No matter where you want to find us on social media, you can do it at Getting Overcast. And if you want to have a live conversation during AEW Revolution, make sure you join our exclusive Getting Over Slack community. You can find the link in our social media profiles. Click it. You're immediately invited. Join the room. There's live conversation during AEW shows, WWE shows. There's a news channel. There's a Hey Now channel, a channel to discuss this program itself and your opinions on the Silver King vintage and some of the subjects we discuss. Make sure you join the Getting Over Slack community. We believe you'll have a great time. Bit of an unpromoted surprise for all of you on this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. The Silver King is bringing in co-host Vintage Chris Vanini. Can you imagine that? This guy is working 2, possibly 3 shows in a singular week. Vintage, how's everything going?
The forbidden door. No, I'm back. Excited to talk about a little bit more WWE, some AEW. Started to catch up a bit now that we're out of football season. And I'm free this weekend, so it was a good time to get ahead of things before the show on Saturday.
Yeah, it is always easier out of football season. And the truth is, as long as we have you for Revolution, Double or Nothing, and All In, that's pretty much like the 3 tentpole shows for the company, the 3 best ones, where More Than My Voice is certainly valued and needed. Some of those other ones, it's pretty easy to kind of just run through the shows, but you did give away a bit that we have a WWE topic to cover here off the top of the show. And that is because it's just something that I completely missed building our Tuesday episode. And it all stems from the CM Punk Usos segment at the end of Monday Night Raw, along with the way Roman Reigns spoke to Punk on the prior edition of Raw. And I got to thinking after the program, the Usos were really in line with their family and Reigns, and they badly wanted that apology and were offended so much that Punk gave it sarcastically and then obviously insulted Reigns on the back end, that they went so far as to get physically violent with him, right? And what are the Usos right now? They're the WWE, the World Tag Team Champions. And what title is Roman Reigns going after? He's going after the World Heavyweight Championship. Well, the last time all of them were champions, Chris, what were they? They were the Bloodline. And what I'm starting to wonder is, with Paul Heyman knocked out from the Vision, that could be temporary, obviously, and it's possible he shows up soon with Brock Lesnar, but as of right now, Paul Heyman is off screen. The Usos are getting aggressive with a somewhat baby face in CM Punk, and Reigns is going back after the title. Do you think there's a legitimate possibility that coming out of WrestleMania 42, the Bloodline is completely reformed and a faction again on WWE television?
I think that depends on Roman's availability. If the Bloodline would lose steam when he wasn't there, which is why you brought in Sami Zayn and the like. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if we need an official going back to it, because they do spend time together. They have done stuff with each other off and on. They acknowledge each other and that kind of stuff. I don't know if we need an official rollout of another Bloodline, and I don't even think it would work or hit the same. And frankly, I don't think I want it, because the first one was so perfect that maybe it's just more of a nodding acknowledgement sometimes that they're back and forth. But if Roman is going to go full tribal chief Bloodline, he's going to have to be on the show all the time.
Right. I think there is a legitimate possibility that you get that from WrestleMania to SummerSlam, because it's such a short window. It's a lot shorter than a lot of people think. SummerSlam to WrestleMania the following year is long. That is a journey. But WrestleMania to SummerSlam is short. And if you're building a 2-night card for SummerSlam in Minneapolis, you got to believe Roman Reigns is going to be on that show. So the question is, can you get him on television enough where you don't just change the title, but actually try to do something compelling? I completely agree with you. You jumped ahead to my second question, which was, will it happen? And then do you actually want it, right? They finished the story, not just for Cody Rhodes, but for the Bloodline in a real strong way, that chapter at least, at WrestleMania 40. And then it kind of trickled into the Bloodline versus original Bloodline when Solo Sikoa built his family, and it just didn't really hit the same. And that's not even going depth about the lack of apology and, rekindling the familial ties that should have been done between Roman and Jay specifically. Jimmy certainly to a degree as well. It feels so loose in that regard that unless they are this is my take. It's like a two-pronged thought. One side is, if they are committed to getting it right, where they're going to reform the Bloodline, and let's not forget, I mentioned everyone except for Sami Zayn. What is Sami doing over on SmackDown right now? He's showing heel tendencies, he's getting selfish, and he's looking out for himself, or at least that seems to be his direction. And we're talking about, how do you put Sami in a zone where he can possibly be a world champion at a WrestleMania next year, WrestleMania 43 in Saudi Arabia. Mm-hmm. Bringing him over to Raw, putting him into the Bloodline again, kind of giving him a little boost back into that character and fan sentiment that had with him and the group previously. If they are committed to doing it and they have an exit plan, this is the biggest key of all. If there is an exit plan to have, first you get Roman to apologize to Jay, they come together. They exit on good terms, either as heels or baby faces, whatever. And then Sammy is able to leave the group and you're not being repetitive. You're not doing what they did at the Royal Rumble that year and having him use the steel chair on Roman and so on and so forth. If there is a full-fledged storyline and if Roman Reigns is going to be on television, I could stomach a short reunion from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. If they do it, though, if they do it just to do it, like when NWO was in WWE, they brought it back, right?
Yes.
If
exactly.
it's going to be a tribute tour and not the actual band coming back together and doing it properly, I do not want to see it at all.
I figured out the other thought I had, which was the Bloodline is a heel group. And when they were a face group, it wasn't nearly as good.
No.
When you're battling the new Bloodline and Solo and all that stuff.
I will say, though, they were going
great...
up against nobodies. They weren't going up against a top heel faction or anything like that. You know, that Bloodline,
Yeah.
Solo Sikoa's Bloodline sucked. Let's be, honest about that.
It did, but they were great as the big bad you eventually had to tear down, and we knew it was going to be torn down, and you got it with Sammy and KO winning the tag team championships, coming together. You got it with Cody the next year.
Seth Rollins helping all the big baby faces, John Cena.
Yeah, I mean, like, as I think about it, like, could they do it? Yeah. Is it a very WWE thing to just run something back on a short-term thing? Yeah, it's always happened, so maybe it does.
Like, think about the times they brought Degeneration X back in different versions, and it just didn't really hit the same as, like, the first two runs with Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and then Triple H, Road Dogg, and Billy Gunn and X-Pac in China.
I mean, Evolution 2 as well.
Right. Yeah. And they tried to do Legacy, but it was a facsimile. And, it's just, if we're going to get Bloodline, they have to be all the way in with it. Like, it has to be so freaking good that we don't look at it as Die Hard 2 to Die Hard 1. We look at it as Die Hard with a vengeance, which, by the way, is the best Die Hard. I don't know if you've seen all of them, because there's so many movies you haven't seen that just boggle my mind. Have you seen at least the first 3 Die Hards?
Not the first two.
Oh, you saw Die Hard 2 and you haven't seen Die Hard 3 with Samuel L. Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, and it's been forever.
That's
like,
insane.
I don't...
Oh my God. Have you seen the other 2, like the weird ones? Or no?
No.
It should be like assignment viewing to watch Die Hard with a Vengeance. They should show that in high school. Really. That's how good of a movie it is. I can't believe you haven't seen Die Hard 3.
So, like, if they came together, who would they go up against? That's the other thing.
Yeah, it's tough. Seth Rollins led babyface faction, maybe of some kind.
So you would make them heels then, essentially?
I think they have to be heels.
That's what I was wondering.
To your point,
there aren't really any good enough heel groups, like unless the Vision probably won't be enough or together in time.
And even if it was, unless Lesnar joined the Vision of, it was like Lesnar, Breaker, Reed, and those guys. I'm trying to think of how to make it work. Like, there's not enough there, is what I'm saying. Like,
yeah, do Punk and Rollins come together to fight them? But what menace are they really? That's the thing,
right? And it's also curious. Like, the original plan was Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns for WrestleMania, and I just have so many concerns as well about, like, some of these major matches that were planned for this year. Rollins and Reigns, Bianca Belair and Rhea Ripley. Are we literally just getting those in front of a Saudi Arabian crowd? Like, is that what's actually going to happen? I don't know. But that is how you could start the Rollins Reigns build for WrestleMania, is you kind of get it going between Mania and SummerSlam, you separate them, and then you come back to it.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll put a pin in that. Vintage will come back for our AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview, which is coming up later in the show. There are timestamps in the episode description. We have multiple segments coming up. You can skip around if you so choose, as always. I hope you listen to the entire show, but he'll be back for the AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview, and we will talk more about the potential for a Bloodline return in WWE, and of course, everything that happens in the world of WWE this coming Tuesday on our next episode covering Raw and SmackDown. With Vintage taking a break here, there were a couple other WWE items, some news adjacent, I wanted to cover as we got into the show. Multiple listeners pointed out to us the ring announce before the WWE Championship match between Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes was unique on Friday, and it's something Silver King missed watching it live. It was indeed specified by Mark Nash that the bout could only be decided via pinfall or submission, which was incredibly interesting considering, that was never mentioned in the build to the match nor on the broadcast before the bell. Commentary didn't even point out the rule in that moment, which is infuriating when you think about it. And I was going to blame commentary, but then I realized if they never promoted the match that way and we only heard about it during the ring announce, maybe commentary didn't know. So that explained why the table powerbomb was not a disqualification. And because I watched the match back, there was also something I missed in the breakdown, a figure 4 rope break from McIntyre that was neither addressed by the referee nor commentary. Again, maddening that no one seemed to do their job to inform the audience of the rules or play up the unique individual situation that McIntyre found himself in as that match was progressing. I'm glad some of you pointed this out because it soured me even more on the match presentation, coupled with the unfortunate lacking quality and booking of the match itself. Now, as far as the replacement referees count, I will admit it was a tad slow, but I simultaneously maintain the count alone in the presence of the ref was nowhere near enough reason for McIntyre to go off the deep end. Now, commentary did explain the issue with the ref, but as I said previously, this was a story beat that had not been referenced in months. I went back and looked. The apology segment was in December, more than 2 months ago. And then, as I said before, the match finish being so sudden and lackluster, this was just a poorly done title change. And I was even more dismayed watching this back than I was watching it live, having an inkling that Cody was going to win back the title, knowing it was happening and going over the match a second time. Man, I was just flummoxed at the way this was presented. Jonathan at Jonah_LW, I believe it is, asked on Twitter, he said, why did Seth Rollins even need to escape the ring on Raw? Even if all of the masked men were 12-year-old kids, it was still 20 against 2. You know what? It's a great freaking point. That's even more of a reason the segment was ridiculous. I did enjoy the idea of them shuffling around to obscure his exit. The conceptualization of that, let's call it, was fine. But to your point, if they were going to have 20 dudes against not Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, right? But Austin Theory and Logan Paul, then Rollins could have gone up to those guys, smacked them both across the face, and then maybe they would have done the scurrying thing. But even then, it's ridiculous because they would have been able to get his back and fight 2-on-20. So yeah, the whole thing was just a joke. Now, as I mentioned, we have a ton coming up still on the show. Tons of coverage of NXT, tons of coverage of AEW.
But I'm afraid I've got some news.
And there are 2 items real quick I wanted to discuss. First, Shawn Michaels announced Wednesday that NXT Stand and Deliver will be airing on YouTube globally now that WWE's deal with Netflix for the NXT Premium Live events has come to an end. This after, during Vengeance Day, both a graphic and a video package showed that Stand and Deliver would air on Peacock. Now, YouTube is where WWE is presently airing the AAA TV shows and all their specials, plus WWE Main Event, and they also air Saturday night's Main Event on YouTube internationally. So it's not surprising as a platform, but it is shocking that WWE did not have another PLE deal in place for NXT and AAA before WrestleMania weekend. And that is something that they have been pursuing. Now, from an accessibility standpoint, this is awesome for fans. From a business standpoint, WWE, they can make a lot of ad revenue through YouTube, but I cannot imagine it's anywhere near equivalent to a media rights deal. Now, I did reach out to WWE for comment, and I received a matter-of-fact response. I said, hey, are all NXT Premium Live events going to be on YouTube? And their response was, Stand and Deliver will air on YouTube. In other words, they were not speaking about future NXT PLEs. But when you combine the small venue in St. Louis with this show airing on YouTube, not on WrestleMania weekend, then you remember the NXT deal with the CW is so low in value, and the NXT library, as of right now, is only available on Tubi, of all places. It remains flummoxing that WWE is not able to sell this product easily, or at least it's not able to maximize its ability to generate revenue through NXT. When you look at the weekly TV ratings, it had been getting higher ratings than AEW Dynamite for months, And now they're kind of going back and forth. I believe Dynamite was higher last week, but probably this week it will be for the Go Home show as well. This remains crazy to me. There is something about this from a business standpoint that I am not understanding. And that's, by the way, the difference between this show and some other programs that will just talk about business and act like they know everything and try to make false equivalencies and equate one thing to another that don't actually work when you put them together. I don't understand what's happening with NXT from a business standpoint. Perhaps they feel like because they called so many stars up, they weren't able to sell a bigger venue for Stand and Deliver. I was okay with them moving it off WrestleMania weekend because the early start on the West Coast is absolutely ridiculous. But to go to such a small venue, when last year they sold 3 to 4 times as many tickets as that venue can hold, and being on WrestleMania weekend, there's a lot more fans in that area. It feels like NXT, time and again, TV deal, now with the PLEs, now with the venue for Stand and Deliver, keeps selling itself short. And I don't entirely understand why. And I'm going to figure it out. I promise. I'm going to do whatever I can to figure it out. From a signing standpoint, NXT keeps bringing in the talent. They have added both Rain, I'm going to botch this last name so bad, Leverkusen, and Nikki Blackheart from the independents, 2 tremendous talents, one of whom has already reported to the WWE Performance Center. That's Rain. And another who will be reporting soon. That's Nikki. Cannot wait for you to see both of them. I've just seen clips on social media and YouTube. I've gone pretty deep on both. Tremendous talents. You want to talk about replenishing this women's division? They will be doing it, and I am expecting some call-ups coming out of Stand and Deliver. I equate both of them more to a Zarya than a Julia or a Stephanie Vaquer, if that makes sense. But you know what? There's nothing wrong with more Zaryas, and that would be fantastic for that division. All right, let's move off of this news segment. And before we get to the deeper parts of the show, allow the Silver King to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
I hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us as we continue providing performance-enhancing audio for your ear holes. Buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Let's kick off our breakdown of NXT and AEW with NXT because it is a pay-per-view week for AEW. That is going to be the main event of the show. We're going to start with a brief second look at NXT Vengeance Day. Then we will discuss every single thing that happened on NXT television this week. We will do the same with AEW. We'll talk about things that happened on TV that perhaps do not directly relate to the pay-per-view. And then the main event of this show, AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview. As far as NXT Vengeance Day goes, I'll go through these matches one by one. NXT Championship, Joe Hendry and Ricky Saints, no change. 3.75 stars, B+, a really solid main event. It should not have been the final match of the show. That should have been the North American Championship. Izzy Dame defending against Tatum Paxley. I'm also keeping my grade there, 4.25 stars A. This was a hell of a match in all phases. Tremendous storytelling, full investment from the crowd, both for Tatum and against the calling. Tatum may not be as over as like Bayley was back in the day, but she's the equivalent character for NXT right now. There's no question about it. I'm going to be criticizing Izzy again later, so let me be clear here. She can go in the ring. She has tremendous upside. Just needs to figure out how to act and speak on a mic. Jada Parker and Blake Monroe street fight, 3.75 stars, B+. There is one thing I overlooked from this match, and it goes for both of them.
They look good, but she's got me saying, hey now!
I received so many comments. Silver King, how could you not drop a hey now for Jada? How could you not drop a hey now for Blake? There were more for Blake than Jada, I'll be candid. That goes for both of them. I'm not going to ring the bell, do a hey now championship. We're way far removed, and also both of them would lose to Jackie Redmond anyway. But regardless, they deserve that credit in addition to the match being fantastic. Lola Vice against Kalani Jordan, NXT Underground. I'm sticking with a B. I'm actually dropping it slightly, 3.25 stars. I know I mentioned this on the instant analysis. I laughed out loud watching Lola throw ass over Lonnie's dead body. That is so freaking funny. It's like a Street Fighter remote almost. Top tier finish to this match. And Lola's dad, as I said before, he was incredible. Tony D'Angelo and Deion Lennox, 4 stars A-, sticking with that. The crowd was straight fire for this match. I wish the whole show was in front of a bigger audience. These two guys, along with all of the women, really deserved a bigger and better crowd. It is crystal clear that WWE expected to have a PLE deal in place for these NXT shows and then got to a point where they're just like, you know what? We can no longer wait. We'll have to figure it out on the back end. That is what I took away watching the show in its entirety. I gave it a 91A- at the end. I'm sticking by that grade. If you were slightly up, slightly down, I'd say anywhere between a 93 and an 89 is completely legitimate for NXT Vengeance Day. Let's move into breaking down everything that happened on NXT TV this week. Tony D'Angelo hit the ring for a promo, and it was the first time I've been able to concentrate on his entrance. The camera work is awesome. Really nice presentation. D'Angelo reminded that he had 2 reasons for coming back. The first goal accomplished by taking out Dark State. He gave Dion Lennox credit for fighting like a man and going out on his shield. Then D'Angelo turned to his second reason, proving he's the toughest son of a bitch in the company while winning the NXT Championship. Tony D said he had no issue with Joe Hendry, but he's not the type of guy who breaks bread anymore. He's happy to break his face to get what he wants. D'Angelo told Hendry that he will not be denied, and he guaranteed that he will be the next NXT champion. Now, this is precisely what we expected, obviously. D'Angelo did well enough. It's just, there's not a lot of buy-in from the fans with this gimmick. They popped when he ratcheted up the intensity of his promo, but the rest of it, he spoke really slow and monotone. That is not exactly going to rouse a crowd behind someone, especially when there's no drama behind the second reason, which was hidden for no reason whatsoever. Everyone knew the second reason was I want the NXT title. It's been ups and downs, peaks and valleys with Tony D since he returned. This was more of a valley. NXT has given viewers zero reason to care about him other than, remember, this was the Mafia guy. Less than a month from Stand and Deliver, he is going to have to get in that title picture soon if that is the plan, because they're going to need to build a legitimate storyline for that show. Ricky Saints backstage criticized Ethan Page for botching his role in the NXT Championship, sliding the title too far away from him. But Page was already in his feelings about that and also losing his North American title. Ethan admitted his mistake. Ricky forgave him, saying they have a huge opportunity in the main event to score a pinfall and get themselves back in title contention. The idea being Page could pin Miles Bourne or Saints could pin Joe Hendry, and one of them would be a respective number 1 contender for that championship. Saints remained focused on their respective belts, but it was clear that Page was kind of eyeing the NXT title. He was talking about taking a step up. Later, Ren QCC put over Miles backstage for winning the North American title, as Bourne wondered where his partner was while preparing for their match. Ren Sinclair knew exactly how to summon him. She said his name and got jump scared from behind when Hendry was not in the refrigerator, but rather just walking in the background. Kendall Gray then started eating a cake that was in the refrigerator like she was D'Angelo Vickers, as fans audibly laughed at the visual. It was so random, so exaggerated, and you know what? So funny. A couple cute segments here. It was surprising not to see Vanity Project with the heels. Ren and Kendall, they have great personality separately and together. I'm convinced at this point they could get anything over. There's not much else to say here, but by the way, if you are not watching Ren's weekly Ren's Day segments on social media with Kendall, you are legitimately missing out. They're short and fun and just something that brings joy every week that you watch them. So we had Hendry and Bourne against Saints and Page. This was the main event. The character work of the heels during and after this match was phenomenal. Saints botched a title slide the same way Page did, except he threw his all the way out the other side of the ring. The heels were at odds the entire time, despite largely dominating the match. Saints hit his Revolution DDT. Page landed a confidence breaker. Then they combined for power and glory before Hendry went on his run of signatures against Page and hit an Olympic slam on Saints. Page carefully handed Saints the title this time. He was unable to use it. The referee took it away. Ethan blind tagged as Ricky speared Joe. That was problematic because Saints was trying to follow up with a Revolution DDT, but he got pushed out of the ring. That gave Page an opening to hit Twisted Grin on the NXT title, beating the champion 1-2-3. Page taunted Bourne rather than Hendry, basically showing him that he's still above him by pinning the champion despite losing his lower title. Saints celebrated with Page, assuming he just received a number 1 contendership, even though it's Ethan who's probably going to get that opportunity, and that should develop a rift between them. This match was not all about the wrestling. It was really the storytelling between the heels, both trying to pin Hendry, Saints doing it obviously, Page acting as if he was focused on Bourne, but really focused on Hendry. Saints realizing after the bell that Page pinned Hendry while he was not able to do so. So that was pretty crucial. And there seemed to be a realization between them that they're partnering with each other out of convenience. It's not something they can keep up long term. An actual 2-man power trip with them in NXT, cleaning up the titles, that would have been great, but doesn't seem like they're going in that direction. Pretty obvious this is going to wind up being a triple threat, if not a 4-way, for Stand Down Deliver, D'Angelo, Page, Saints, Hendry. As long as they can figure out a sensible way to make this work, that could be a great match. Sol Ruca fought Lainey Reed. Sol and Lola Vice commiserated backstage, each putting the other over, before Lola said that she wanted to be number one contender once Ruca wins the NXT title next week. Sol landed her step-off moonsault from the apron before Fatal Influence distracted to give Lainey a chance. Reed did a gory-style choke submission into a gory bomb during the break. Sol hit a nice missile dropkick off the ropes. Then they missed a jittery springboard move before eating a blue thunder bomb. Ruca rolled through another gory attempt, hitting an X-Factor and a swinging slam that did not work at all. Lainey followed with a really nice pinning combination, but she ate a super kick on a step through. She pulled Ruca off the ropes during a soul snatcher attempt, botched a crucifix bomb, basically landing on her own body. Ruca avoided the running knee callback from last week and hit a soul snatcher out of the corner, with Reed just waiting for it to get the win. JC Jane hugged her title tight, a nice reaction to the match. Zarya stood behind the heels on the stage, watching over her future competitors for next week. If there was ever a match that could prove what I said about Sol being nowhere near ready for the main roster, it was this. That's not saying it was bad, far from it, in fact. But it's one thing to work well on a really big stage with Bayley, and quite another to struggle keeping up your speed and tempo in a 14-minute NXT match where your competitor outshines you in a couple crucial areas. Lainey has a lot of in-ring talent, even if her character is boring as sin, and Sol was surprisingly slow in plotting in the end of this, almost as if she needed time to remember what was coming next or pace herself. The work was still strong, don't get me wrong, and it was booked well in that they had multiple early match callbacks later in the bout, along with some solid sequences. I'm certainly not one to complain about the women getting more ring time, but as this kept going, I was wondering why it hadn't ended already and why the booking was for Lainey to get so much on a number one contender without regular interference from her heel group. They tried to help early one time, but they never tried helping again. If it was Fallon Henley, okay, but it wasn't. It was Lainey Reed. Now, whatever the move was that Sol tried before the Snatcher, I'm not sure if it was her testing a second finisher. It did not work. As I said last week, they cannot rely on Soul Snatcher as their only finisher. It is way too difficult of a setup. Sinclair and Thea Hale fought in a speed match, which neither could really afford to lose, but especially not Sinclair. Thea had a really nice swinging neckbreaker bouncing off the ropes. Ren completely dodged her, flying, then escaped a Kimura lock, countering into the final wrench for a tap-out victory in 2 minutes. Not as strong as the match from last week, but Sinclair badly needed to win this, and she's got to take the title off Henley next week. It's just unfortunate that all of this is kind of conscripted in the dumb speed division with real limited match time. Hell, even if Ren wins next week, it'll still be another sub 5-minute match for her. She's always working better when she gets more time, but they're throwing her into a division where the matches are 3 or 5 minutes after she proved in tag team matches and other situations that she can go much longer. It's really, really annoying. Jane backstage said she would make the impossible happen next week by beating 2 challengers, avoiding the streak of new champions that have been crowned across both NXT and the WWE main roster of late. Henley completely dismissed Sinclair as an opponent. Then Ren QCC came in, promising that Ren would win the speed title and that Kendall would be next to take the NXT title from Jay-Z if she is somehow able to avoid losing in the triple threat. Decent segment, didn't accomplish much. I dislike the idea of Kendall always speaking for Ren. She needs mic time just as much, if not more. I'm talking about Ren here. Sinclair is like the leader of a 2-girl group, yet second in the pecking order to the woman who's holding an Evolved championship. It's a little strange. Tatum Paxley opened the show, again getting You Deserve It chants. She reiterated her refreshed gimmick, crediting the fans for driving her to championship glory, saying the title around her waist gives her a level of confidence that makes all of her pain to this point worth it. Tatum equated the NXT title to something that she won for the culling, whereas the North American title she won for herself. Izzy Dame interrupted with Paxley immediately yelling for her to go away.
God, go away!
And we will add that clip to the soundboard. Dame called up a video package on the Titantron that showed Paxley as a performance center recruit going through early trials in her career. Izzy said Tatum is faking everything. She's still a weirdo, outcast, now simply wearing another mask, acting like a chameleon. Dame was sure the unlovable girl inside would come out again and everyone would turn on her. When Tatum tried to leave, the culling stood in her way, allowing Izzy to quickly flatten her and hold the strap high over her head. And I'm sitting here asking, why? Why is this continuing? These two have been feuding for 4 months already. Are we really just running this back at Stand and Deliver? I truly hoped like they were doing something for TV instead with a hell of a stipulation, because otherwise I could not imagine another month of build for a PLE match. I didn't even fully understand the purpose of the video package and how that related to Tatum faking anything. It didn't connect for me at all what Izzy was saying. The Tatum portion was stronger, obviously, than the Izzy portion, which is regularly the case. But while it made for a pretty solid start to the show, it just felt seriously repetitive. And as I've said about Izzy so many times before, she just gets out there and talks too damn much. Too wordy, too verbose, too fast. Less is usually more. They need to simplify everything around her. I don't know if it is simply her as a person, which is what my guess is, because there's people in your life, you know them, where you say, hey, tell me about your weekend. And then all of a sudden they just go and they just talk. And next thing you know, it's 35 minutes later and you're like, shit, I'm late for dinner, right? Maybe that's who Izzy is as a person. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not casting disparagement on her. But what I am saying is that as a wrestler, as a performer, you need to get in the ring, make your point, and then pause and let the other person reply. It is not about you going out there and speaking. And even if you're in the ring by yourself, it's not about you getting everything off your chest and out into the audience, whatever's in your brain. It's about saying the right things to draw reactions from the crowd and then shutting up. And Paxley knows how to do that. She gets out there, she rouses the crowd, pauses, lets them cheer. Then she talks again, pauses, lets them cheer. Whereas Dame, she just goes out there and feels like if I'm not speaking, I'm doing something wrong. And that is not what professional wrestling is all about. They badly need to work with her on that. So later in the show, Paxley stormed backstage looking for Dame, coming across Shiloh Hill at a workbench. He said he's willing to help her mess with Izzy's car and keep her in the arena. That way Tatum can find her. The Culling later found their car on cinder blocks with the tires removed in the NXT parking lot. There were like 4 different car alarms going off. It was chaotic. And Hill told Stone that he wasn't sure what car belonged to the Culling, so he just messed with a bunch of them. It was actually kind of funny, and it was Shiloh's best segment yet. This is so much better with Hill than the try-hard, weird nut job side of his gimmick. The tonality of it is easier to digest and get behind with him being a babyface. It's almost like he's a wild, manic Bugs Bunny character. And that is far better than weirdo conspiracy theorist, doomsday prepper, hacker, or whatever the hell they were trying to have him do. Even later, Tatum attacked Izzy as the Culling were finally leaving the building. Security quickly pulled them apart. Stone ran out. He was crazed like Adam Pearce. He decided they would rematch in a steel cage, and that match is happening next week, meaning not 1 or 2. All 3 women's championships are going to be on the line during the same episode of NXT from Houston.
Oh! Yes! I love that!
I may not be in love with rematching this so quickly, but going with the steel cage stipulation, knocking it out in 10 days after the title change, and clearing the deck for Stand and Deliver, especially since it's going to be in a different venue this match in Houston, that works for me. And of course, all of this is assuming that Tatum doubles up and gets another dub. Blake Monroe backstage credited Jada Parker for bringing out the awful side of her, but she said when you play with fire, you get burnt. Monroe said Stand and Deliver would be all about her considering that she's the conversation, she's the controversy. That's when Paxley came through looking for Dame. Blake getting her eyes on Tatum's title was pretty interesting. That happened as Paxley ran away. She also told the interviewer, whose first name is Blake, that he needs to change his name. I definitely wanted more from Monroe coming off her big win. A stronger follow-up would have been nice, but this worked well enough. I'm curious what the booking will be for Stand and Deliver. Tatum against Blake would be an incredibly interesting match. I don't want to see that in a triple threat with Izzy. If we get Tatum and Blake, what's the booking? Like, Monroe really should win the title back. You cannot have Tatum win both championships and drop each of them after a month unless she is getting called up to the main roster after WrestleMania. That's the only exception. Charlie Dempsey and Tavian Heights fought Lexis King and Uriah Connors. The heels backstage were bothered that Dempsey did not join them last week, with Connor saying his dad made a call and people were on their way. Birthright all entered together, seated on the King's throne, which was a real cool look. The crowd was rather cold for this at the bell. The wrestling was solid, particularly from the face side. Dempsey hugged Heights ringside after a really solid sequence where he got his back, when suddenly Fit Finlay and William Regal walked out together. When Dempsey saw them, he pulled Heights backward, hit a German suplex, then threw him into the ring for the coronation and a Birthright victory. Then Dempsey looked at his father, nodded, and entered the ring to join Birthright. Shockingly little reaction from fans. That's not surprising when you remember that Dempsey has barely been used of late. Heights has faded into the background, so the crowd has not attached themselves to either guy emotionally as a babyface. If you're going to have one face turn on another, you need the crowd to care that happened. They don't care about their relationship. You broke up NQCC, and they haven't interacted with each other. Dempsey has barely been on screen, and Heights has lost everything that he's been involved in. Plus, neither King, Connors, nor Stacks particularly draw strong reactions. Now, maybe this gimmick just doesn't resonate with the younger crowd. That's unfortunate, if so. It's the right booking decision, and obviously with the match being scheduled, it was telegraphed last week. We called this. But we'll have to see how Dempsey fits in with the group. As I said before, he should be the leader. And there should be at least a couple of weeks with Regal and Finlay helping these guys out. I do expect to see Finlay regularly. I believe he's in Orlando at the Performance Center. I don't believe that's the case with Regal, but he should at least be there a couple times to establish this group. I don't know that this is going to work. I thought it was going to, but the crowd was so cold to it that unless they really get some strong baby faces that they're going against, and I don't know that those exist right now in the men's division, it might be a struggle. Shawn Legacy, Eli Knight, and Jasper Troy fought in a triple threat match. The faces wore the same color gear, which was particularly ridiculous because it was an aquamarine shade. It wasn't like red or yellow or something really basic. So it was super easy for them not to wear the same color. Troy went to do a power spot early, but dropped one of the guys and had to reset into a chokeslam stack. Keanu Carver then attacked Troy ringside, chokeslamming him through the announce table like a monster, then staring down Booker T, jawing and barking in his face figuratively. Carver may have been extremely rough around the edges in all the matches that we've seen, but this dude is an absolute beast physically. And positioning him as this uncaged, hungry lion, it gets the job done. Booker completely flipped out during the commercial break, saying his life was in danger, comparing Keanu to King Kong, and saying he should be fired while hating on Robert Stone for an unsafe working environment. This would have been real effective on the main broadcast. I don't know why he did it during the break. Legacy and Knight had a strong match for 6 to 7 minutes, the former hitting some type of inverted DDT Falcon Arrow, plus a standing Spanish Fly. That's when Troy finally re-entered the ring, selling his ribs. He drove Legacy into the corner, had another strength failure on a lift. Troy grabbed the faces out of the corner, did a double Samoan drop, but the faces prevented backhole slam. Legacy took him down with sliced bread. He also hit a springboard 450. Knight added his sky-high moonsault, and they covered Troy simultaneously, getting a double count 1, 2, 3 in the finish. They decided to shake hands and take it, just like those Olympic track and field athletes splitting the gold medal a few years ago. You always see that on social media. Uncommon finish that I presumed at the time would lead to another speed triple threat match, which of course none of us need. Though to be fair, what those three guys can do in 7 minutes would be pretty spectacular. I guess I'm unfairly starting negative for a segment I actually enjoyed quite a bit. Troy's selling of the ribs in a silo was his best work in NXT. There are veterans who don't sell injuries as well as he did in this match. And it was a really nice swerve, leading viewers to believe he was going to work from under and triumph anyway. Yet instead they did a double fall for the guys who busted their asses the entire match. As I said last week, if NXT was to turn speed into a cruiserweight championship, they actually have the horses for it. And it looked like that was going to happen in the backstage segment, except it ultimately did not. Regarding Troy, to wrap up on him, he's still way too green. He doesn't go in the ring well enough. He's too big to fail lifting really small guys like he did here. Ultimately, they got to figure out what to do with him. And it just feels like they brought him up way too soon. I know he won LFG. He's just not ready for it. Or they're giving him a shot and maybe it just doesn't work. Later backstage, Stone told Legacy and Knight that they would have to go through the speed tournament to become number one contenders. He was forced to abide by the rules he inherited. Ridiculous. Vanity Project came through talking crap about the concept of needing to win a tournament every single time just to name a number one contender and how they can regularly go for longer than 3 minutes, but apparently guys in that division can't.
Thank you.
Then they asked Stone what he has cooked up for their tag team titles at Stand and Deliver. Stone looked at Legacy and Knight and was like, hey, you know what? I got a different idea for you guys. The obvious insinuation being that they're going to team up and enter the tag team division. You know, they wouldn't have to deal with the stupid speed rules if they just got rid of the speed titles. I digress. Stone later decreed that he would run a tag team tournament featuring the Culling, Legacy and Knight, Hank and Tank, Birthright, OTM and Dark State. That pissed off Dark State. They wanted a straight up rematch. OTM then came through, delivered a forearm to the face of one of the Dark State guys. I forget which one it was. And a brawl interrupted. What I was trying to figure out is, why wasn't this just a Dusty Cup? If they're going to run a tag team tournament, I don't believe they've done that in a few years from now. That's some of the best stuff that NXT ever does. It was nice to see everyone's personality come through in that really short segment. Vanity Project, Knight, and Legacy. Teaming Legacy and Knight, it may legitimately help this tag team division find itself again. Maybe they can be, for lack of a better term, a new Fraxium. All of the folks in the latter segment were rather uninspired, but perhaps the tournament would work some stuff out, create a hierarchy in the division. The one part that didn't make sense was Vanity not wanting the tournament. They were protesting. As heels, you should be embracing the idea of challengers wearing each other out before they get to you. So at the end of this segment, I go, okay, tag team tournament, all of those teams sounds pretty good. Stone later decided that OTM and Dark State would not be in the tournament, which makes it far, far less compelling. He also announced Vanity against Los Americanos in a 6-man tag team match. And then Vic Joseph announced from commentary that the Houston show next week is going to be Booker T Appreciation Night because of the location. Sounds to me like Booker is going to bump his ass off for Carver on that show. He's going to take some type of big slam through a table. As far as Stone, he's doing pretty damn well as interim general manager. I hope he keeps the role unless they're going to do something like bring Regal back or they have someone else pegged for that role. But announcing a tournament and then immediately taking 2 of the best teams out of the tournament, it's really not smart booking. In terms of NXT as a whole, the women were so much stronger on this show that it boggles the mind how the men continue to main event so frequently. Hopefully that's not the case at Stand and Deliver. The question is whether the 3 women's title matches next week in Houston are a sign of what's to come, or they're kind of getting major women's stuff out of the way to clear the deck for the men at Stand and Deliver. Hopefully it's the former and not the latter. For Stand and Deliver, I could see a grudge match main event with Sol Ruca and Zarya, perhaps a major stipulation and no title on the line. Then maybe you do JC Jane against Kendall Gray, with the NXT championship actually switching. You crown Kendall, and you have JC retain, obviously, coming this Wednesday in Houston. And then it seems like they're setting up Tatum Paxley and Blake Monroe. There's no way they're going to have Izzy go back over Tatum. So that outcome next week is pretty obvious. If those 3 matches are all on the Stand and Deliver card, what you have to do is have them open, pace the mid-show, and then close as the main event. Then you do a stacked 4-way with Hendry, Page, Saints, and D'Angelo, a tag team championship match with Vanity Project, and you have a super strong 5-match card right there. You only need to book 1 more match. Maybe you do a ladder match for the Men's North American Championship. All of a sudden, you have a 6-match banger card for Stand and Deliver. We will see if NXT actually does that. Let's move over to AEW. Just a reminder that we are going to start by discussing what happened on AEW TV that perhaps does not directly impact Revolution, and then we'll discuss the rest of that in the AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview. Before we begin breaking down what happened on TV, though, I want to take some time right off the top here to shout out Mercedes Moné. You know, in the middle of her belt collector gimmick, we questioned, to what end is all of this happening? It was obvious that she was going to lose the TBS title in AEW. I figured she would lose the CMLL title over there. But I don't feel like it was wrong to assume that the rest of the belts would fall off her in a variety of manners, losing some, relinquishing others, etc. Well, you know what happens when you assume, right? Mercedes is going around dropping these titles one by one, and not only losing them at big shows too. She's out there running these independents and putting over small talent. I do wish there was more of a connecting storyline behind it, just to truly sell her ongoing depression. She keeps setting new title matches to prove to herself that she's still a champion, but she keeps losing them one by one. And AEW also is not showing these on TV. They showed the CMLL loss. She lost that to Persephone in a fantastic match last week, but they're not selling the little ones. And if they sold the little ones, it would really help with Moné's character when she returns to TV. Still, this is more than I expected from Mercedes, and she deserves a lot of credit for doing what she's doing. I just wish she never tried to pull off like the crap Ultimo nickname, because Dragon winning those titles was a true accomplishment back in the day. This is kind of like comparing Kobe's 81 to Bam's 83, for those who understand the reference. Like, sure, it's more or equal, but it's not as good. And there's multiple reasons why that's the case. regarding Dynamite this week, it's kind of crazy to do the go-home show for a pay-per-view that has sold nearly 10,000 tickets, by the way, in a venue that has capacity Wednesday night of less than 2,500. The commentary table was across from the hard cam all show, and certain parts of it had to be taped outside because the venue was so small. From a business standpoint, it does stand to wonder whether AEW would actually be more successful. Actually, I said from a business standpoint. Let me correct myself. From a quality standpoint, I believe AEW would be more successful if it heavily focused on their crazy work rate pay-per-view cards and much, much less on TV. Like if you told me AEW was a 2-hour show each week, maybe even 90 minutes each week, and all they were really doing was using that as some storytelling to set up banger pay-per-view cards every single month, that would interest me more than watching nearly 5 hours of TV. Dynamite goes 2+. Collision this week went 2+ as well, where a lot of it is kind of thrown together. Matches happen for no reason, and they still don't do a great job storytelling for their pay-per-view product. I'm not saying bad. There's many matches on the AEW Revolution card that have been built well, but there's also many that either weren't built at all or were extremely flimsy. It would be an interesting direction for them to go. That's my personal opinion. From a business standpoint, they can't really do that. They need the media rights revenue. They have to put on these shows and have matches because they need people to watch them. But if you told me that it was like a YouTube-based creative for a pay-per-view product once a month, one of these shows, these 12-match cards every single month, and they gave us all the storytelling on YouTube, for example, I would like that more than probably what we're getting for AEW. But that's something real unique, and really it's something I wish I could tell you another promotion could do it. They can't because there's so much talent swallowed up by WWE and AEW that there's not enough out there to put on the card that would be the quality of AEW for an independent show. But it would be interesting if someone actually had done that concept before AEW existed, which really, I guess you could say, is kind of what All In was. I really got that feeling watching Dynamite on Wednesday. I was like, man, if they just completely tweaked the direction of this company and focused on pay-per-views, because this card is sick. It really is. They could do something really, really different. As far as match relevancy this week, 6 of 13 met that category. So we're talking under 50%, which is terrible leading into a pay-per-view. Now, it is possible because there is a Collision on Saturday and this pay-per-view is Sunday. So Collision could have relevant matches, and then suddenly the go-home, if you combine Dynamite and Collision literally the week of, might be really strong and really relevant. But we always do Saturday, Wednesday because we tape the show on Thursday and Dynamite is the primary program. As I said, let's get into things that happened across TV that were not directly tied into Revolution, and then we will cover the rest as part of the AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview. On Collision, Konosuke Takeshita beat Claudio Castagnoli in a hell of a main event that took the show into overtime. I gave this storyline credit. It played back to the Continental Classic, and the factions are actively feuding. There was no real reason for this match on this night, though, just to be clear. As hot as it was rolling, they slowed down a bit before the finish. Takeshita ultimately hit Raging Fire after a strike sequence, got the win. 4 stars A-, easily the match of the night on Saturday for AEW. Reminder, Claudio is the CMLL champion. He lost clean on AEW TV. Is Takeshita going to get a title match out of this? Or does that not matter at all? Keep that thought in your head because we're going to go back to it. On Dynamite, TNT title on the line, Kyle Fletcher retained over Mike Bailey in a 19-minute barn burner. Before the match, MJF asked Fletcher to kick Bailey's ass because he got kicked in the face by him recently. Fletcher said he would beat Speedball up himself, and MJF told Don Callis that his guys should speak to him with respect. Callis told Fletcher they're not working together, even though, they did work together last week. I gave this relevancy credit. It was an extension of a larger story. Even if Bailey hadn't done anything to deserve this chance on its own, I believe they had a great match in the Continental Classic, but that had been obviously a long time ago. Speedball had an excellent springboard corkscrew to the ringside area. He got lawn darted then into the top turnbuckle. Tony Schiavone called both of these moves incorrectly. He was the lead because Excalibur was not there. Bailey hit a Poison Rana off the ropes. Fletcher immediately stood up and ate a kick for a false finish. He countered Bailey into a great Michinoku driver, then dodged Ultimate Weapon and barely kicked out of a great straightjacket pinning combination. Kazuchika Okada ran in with a screwdriver as a distraction, and Fletcher hit Bailey with the title, adding a brainbuster to retain.
Well, that was a great matchup, but the ending sucked.
Phenomenal match otherwise. Tough to understand why Fletcher, who AEW is talking about as a future world champion, a guy who challenged for the title inside the last 12 months, needed an out, and why Bayley needed to be protected in the finish. The only explanation is if Bayley is going to take this title off of him in the near future. And perhaps that's the move, because what's clear in the match storytelling is that Bayley is a stylistic nightmare for Fletcher. Undoubted A match. I'm going 4.25 stars and an A. It would have been 4.5 with a clean finish. It might have touched A+ territory with a clean finish in 5 more minutes. On Collision, Tag Team Championship, FTR retained over the Rascals. This was developed through that Eliminator match. The champions lost. Strong opener for the show. Was rolling hot until it finished weakly. Great spot with the Rascals combining for a German suplex and jackknife cover. Unfortunately, the next spot was a botched, failed finisher. FTR then hit a truly awful BTE trigger and Shatter Machine to retain. Still, B+ match, 3.75 stars. Really good work until the end. On Collision, Daniel Garcia beat Tommaso Ciampa in a match that happened for no reason whatsoever. Mark Briscoe was on commentary, crossed paths with FTR during his ring walk. Garcia kicked out of Project Ciampa. Ciampa sold a knee that had been worked on during the match. Garcia then won with a jackknife cover after Ciampa ran into Briscoe, who was kind of goaded into getting involved with a slap on commentary, jumped on the ring apron. An infuriated Ciampa smacked away a handshake after the bell, but when FTR came out, Briscoe got his back in the ring. So they walked out together all the way down the ramp, only for Ciampa to run back identically the NXT TakeOver Chicago heel turn on Johnny Gargano. It was so freaking empty to do this, man. A total lack of creativity, number one. And number two, no established closeness between them. I know they talked about them wrestling together in Ring of Honor previously, but that was a best friend turn when Ciampa did it on Gargano. And they're going to run it back as an empty shell just to pop the 10 people who noticed and maybe diss NXT in some way. I could not understand the reasoning for this. After already involving Ciampa in a feud/partnership with FTR, again calling back to NXT. Despite getting his ass roundly kicked, Briscoe was able to cut a backstage promo later in the show, saying this is the Ciampa he knows, and he should have trusted his instincts and not gone with him. He revealed that he got a trios match booked with the Young Bucks on Dynamite, the guys he feuded with for the better part of a year and never made up with. On Dynamite, TBS title was on the line. Willow Nightingale retained over Persephone, who, as I said earlier, just won the CMLL title from Mercedes. So both of CMLL's main champions lost squeaky clean on AEW TV across a 5-day span. Can you imagine if WWE put the two TNA champions, because that's the only close comparison I can give you, put the two TNA champions on a show and beat them both clean inside of 5 days? People would lose their effing minds. Willow better be getting a title match on the back end of this. That's all I'm saying. The concept for this match was that they both beat Monet, so I guess Persephone wanted the TBS title also. Really thin, only mentioned on TV briefly before they fought. Also, the only women's match on the show, as per usual. Personally, it was my second favorite match outside of Fletcher and Speedball. Willow avoided a razor's edge, went with a basic backslide. The finish obviously could have been much better. On Collision, Megan Bayne and Alana Cross beat the Timeless Love Bombs. This got a nice amount of time at 13 minutes, but again, it was the only women's match. Bayne looked so much better next to Cross than Penelope Ford. The heels destroyed Babes of Wrath backstage just because. Shivani literally chanted on commentary. He was immensely annoying. Marina Shafir put Toni Storm in Mother's Milk under the ring as Mina Shirakawa took a jackhammer from Cross. I'm not going to say Mina is a jobber because I try not to use that word for real talent, but holy shit, does she get jobbed out a lot. Parts of this were fun. The heels were impressive together. On Collision, the Dogs beat 3 jobbers. I'm okay with the squash here for some new guys. They came out to Gabe Kidd's music. David Finlay got the pin with an elevated knee to the face called Overkill. I like the move. They got 0 heat. On Collision, Hook backstage was looking for Ops members when Anthony Bowens approached, positive that he can be a killer. Hook asked if he wants to prove it. So Bowens said, yeah, I want to prove it. He had Bowens take the camera from Katsuyori Shibata. So Bowens takes the camera. Hook walks up to a guy, goes, hey, do you want to be in the Ops? He goes, yeah. So he goes, see if you can escape this. Puts him to sleep in 4 seconds. Bowens goes, hey, you guys want the camera back? And Hook goes, no, just follow us. This was straight up dreadful. 2 weeks in a row. How does that prove that he's a killer? Is he just part of the group accepted now, and at some point they're going to sick him on somebody, and that's going to prove that he's a killer by beating up a third stagehand or something like that? And by the way, what happened to the Acclaimed reunion? Was that just dropped like a bad habit? Samoa Joe cannot get back soon enough.
I hate this. I hate this crap. Stop. Stop with the crap. That is enough. God damn it. That is enough.
I actually played that second drop without even knowing what it was, but I'm going to leave it in the show. On Collision, Private Party beat LFI, the Outrunners, and the Swirl in a $200,000 match. Just when I thought these were over with and Tony Khan had smartened up to this absurdity. Nope. Let's put $200K on the line for 8 dudes who are under contract already and can't even get on TV with regularity. It is crazy that Party came back after a year gone, didn't change their theme, didn't change their gimmick, lost the 2 big matches they were in immediately, and now just won this out of a bunch of guys who, again, can't get on television.
That is one big pile of shit.
Now, welcoming back in Vintage Chris Vanini, it is time for our AEW Revolution Ultimate Preview. This is going to be a 12-match card as we tape this show. It could obviously get expanded with more 0-hour matches after Collision on Saturday. Hopefully not. Again, this is a Sunday show, not a Saturday show. Of the 10 matches presently set for the main card, 3 of them are completely thrown together. The other 7 have been built nicely to different degrees. There's some weirdness to the 0-hour portion. We're going to get to that right now, and Vintage is going to contribute as much as he possibly can. He's seen a lot of AEW, but he hasn't necessarily seen every single episode of television over the last month or 2 months. The National Championship, I still can't believe that title is named that, is going to be defended in a 21-man Blackjack Battle Royal on 0 hour. Ricochet is defending his title in this match. Why? Did he do something wrong where he needed to be put at such an extreme disadvantage? Why does this title even exist? These are all questions Silver King is asking. They have not even promoted this on television. I am guessing that we're going to see the Big Boom AJ guy and a bunch of other randoms in this match, and Ricochet retains the title. I cannot imagine him losing it in this manner. And also, if he does beat 21 other guys in theory, that would give him something to brag about. The other 0-hour match as it currently exists is Willow Nightingale defending her TBS title against Lena Cross. Willow randomly decided on Dynamite that they would defend both of their titles on the same night. Willow is a double champion, TBS champion, and women's tag team champion. She challenged Lena individually in this match. And this is just real dumb babyface shit. You gotta assume it's telegraphing the results of both matches, right? Like Willow goes all out, retains her title here, and Lena's going to be tired too, certainly. But then they have to defend the women's tag team championships, which is the next match we're going to talk about, Chris. So I'm going to combine these in one, where you're going to have Babes of Wrath against Megan Bayne and Lena Cross. So the same challenger and the same champion on both sides, but with 2 other people. So Willow's going to be exhausted. Maybe she gets an injury in the match, but at least Nightingale is a beast and Cross is as well. So you can say she can recover from that. On the other side, you have Megan Bayne, who's an even bigger beast, and then Harley Cameron. So you have an exhausted Willow and Harley going up against 2 Hoss women. That tells me that Nightingale is going to retain her TBS championship, and then Babes of Wrath are going to lose the women's tag team titles, I would assume, an hour to 2 hours later. What do you think is going to happen with these 2 matches?
Yes, I'm with you. I think Willow retains on 0 hour, loses the tag team championships for the reasons that you said. I'm trying to think, like, to fight somebody twice on one show is so unusual, even in the history of pro wrestling. I guess at the first the Wembley All Out, they had MJF and Adam Cole together and fighting each other in the same show. Right?
All in, yeah. They lost. I'm trying to remember. Did they retain the tag team titles?
I think they retained.
They retained they retained the ROH tag team titles over Kingdom, I want to say.
And that might have been on the 0 hour as well.
And then they fought each other. It was on the 0 hour
in the main event.
And then they fought each other in the main event. Yeah, that's the last time it's happened.
It's the closest thing I could think of. Willow's awesome. It's great that she's been getting more push and spotlight. Mm-hmm. I hate double champions, as I often say. So coming out of this with her with a single championship, I think would be good. So I'm with you on those picks. Same with the Battle Royal. I will say I like AEW's Battle Royals. Like, they're pretty fun. They're a good pre-show type of thing. I think the Big Boom Costco guys are still pretty funny. have some fun. It's perfect pre-show nothingness. It's weird to have a championship on the line here, but yes, I think Ricochet retains as well.
Yeah, it's just weird to have the title on the line without the guy doing something to deserve the adversity. Like, have Ricochet do something on screen where Tony Khan gets upset or someone gets upset and convinces him to book this match. Instead, it's just penalizing him for no reason whatsoever. He's a heel, sure, that's fine. Better than penalizing a babyface, but you're still doing
it. It's arguably the biggest possible penalty you could give someone.
It is. Yeah, you have to beat 21 other dudes. I mean, a gauntlet's probably worse, but yeah, like it's a really big penalty for sure. There's no question about that. I did forget to mention at the start of this Ultimate Preview that the way we operate this is we're going to break down every single match on the card. We're going to tell you what happened on Dynamite and Collision from the last week that may play into these matches specifically. And then, of course, we'll give you picks and predictions. And at the end, we'll give you our pre-show expectation grade for AEW Revolution. Getting to the rest of the main card. We have Darby Allin, Orange Cassidy, and Roderick Strong, a returning Roderick Strong, against the Dogs in a Tornado Trios match. On Dynamite, the Dogs beat Darby and Orange. They came out to kids' music. His whole deal of crawling like a dog on the stage, it is so weird looking, man. Maybe it's just me, but everything about Gabe Kidd feels so forced. There was nothing for the heels at the bell in terms of crowd reaction. Clark Connors hit Cassidy in the head with a tire iron as the referee was distracted. Kidd caught a coffin drop cold, and the heels double-teamed Allin with a Dominator and a pile driver. The Dominator was really nasty. Strong came down after the bell, pretending as if he was going to attack Orange. Instead, he threw his body into Gabe's body. He helped the faces. He shook Orange's hand, and he basically created the trios match. It was a nice moment for Roddy. I'd have put this on the go-home Collision. It is not a pay-per-view match. I do enjoy that they're doing a Tornado Trios, so these 6 guys can just go wild and they don't need to have a referee faking to understand what tag team rules are, since that is a farce in AEW in general. The booking of this is tough, right? Because the babyface side in Darby and Orange has 2 much bigger characters. The Dogs also already beat Darby and Orange on TV, as we just explained. But the Dogs are a brand new group in AEW, and you do have Strong on the other side to take the fall. I also believe there's going to be plenty of opportunities for babyfaces to win on this card. Maybe not in all the situations you think. So it really should be Darby and Orange, just like for fan sentiment to have a big babyface spot on the show. But if I'm booking, and I think this is probably how Tony Khan is thinking as well, if I am introducing a brand new trio and I just brought in David Finlay as part of this group, I need the heels to win and actually assert their dominance. So I have the Dogs beating, I don't know why I said Dogs that way. I have the Dogs beating Darby, Orange, and Roddy in this match.
I was going to say the same thing. You just brought David Finlay in. You just have this group. They should win. That's part of the point. I'm not ruling out that they don't, because you never know with the way AEW books certain things, right. Which, to go back to the Willow thing, you had Persephone or whoever who just beat Mercedes Moné, comes in and then just loses to Willow on Dynamite.
Yeah, you weren't on this show, but I mentioned that like the CMLL champions for the men and women, because Claudio lost on Collision, lost clean to AEW wrestlers on TV. Yeah. The CMLL champions is mind-boggling. And to your point, she just beat Mercedes. Yeah.
So they don't always maybe handle momentum the right way, but I'm going to go with the Dogs as well.
Yeah, I think like we don't do confidence picks here, but if we were talking about the women's segments that we were just discussing, my confidence is very high on that. Like 80%, that's going to go. Willow retains and then Babes of Wrath lose. My confidence here is like 65. You know, it's not very high.
Yeah, one other thing. I always get mixed up with Clark Connors' name because the name Connor Kent is Superboy in DC Comics.
I didn't know
so
that.
Clark and Connors and Connor Kent, Clark Kent, it always messes up in my head when I see his name.
He's like Superman Boy, basically, for AEW. Trios championships are on the line. Yes, there's going to be 2 trios matches on this card. Kazuchika Okada, Kyle Fletcher, and Mark Davis defending against Jet Speed. And Mystico, something else that Vintage just said a second ago about double champions. There are 3 double champions in AEW right now, and all of them are holding 2 AEW titles, not like an ROH and an AEW or a CMLL. Yeah, They're all holding 2 AEW titles.
It's on the verge of almost becoming a problem in WWE because you have some of the AAA stuff, but it's always been too many titles has always been a problem in AEW, and it's just like it's just getting worse. They're just adding more belts, and everybody's a double champion.
It's
like
crazy.
The belts mean nothing. It's just crazy, especially when you have 2 AEW belts.
Yeah,
like, come on.
The trios titles haven't meant anything for a while, but what's funny is they were held by the Ops, which had the AEW champion. Then they got changed to Jet Speed and Hangman Page, the AEW champion. Then they're on Kazuchika Okada, Fletcher, and Davis, who are the international and TNT champions. So the trios titles have been an afterthought for a long time. But obviously Okada, Fletcher, and Davis just won these.
Build the division, guys. Build tag team divisions again. That was my New Year's resolution for AEW and WWE. Build back tag team wrestling.
Tag and
trios. That doesn't mean we got to get rid of trios titles. Frankly, you don't have a tag team division, and trios titles only make it worse.
Totally. Mike Bailey backstage at Collision told Kevin Knight that he did not let the tag team down, losing the trios titles initially to this group. This is how they announced the trios title match, in which they are randomly teaming with a guy in Mystico who they have not worked alongside, and they're replacing the partner who they held the titles with, Hangman, who's in the main event of the show. It's so dumb. If this was an injury replacement with a short TV storyline, fine. It's literally just thrown together. Swerve Strickland also told Knight he needs to learn to be a killer, which is what the entire Ops storyline is about. So yeah, that's confusing as well. Maybe Swerve is going to build a faction with some of these dudes. We'll find out. Anyway, these trios titles just changed hands. It would make no sense to change them again. I have Okada, Fletcher, and Davis retaining.
I do as well. And man, a point of what a waste of space these are. You have Kyle frickin' Fletcher, man, who is doing great stuff as TBS champion. And on one of your biggest, what is usually one of, if not your biggest show of the year, he's in a trios tag match. Come on.
Well,
gotta find something better.
What happened is they needed an excuse to get Okada on the show. It's clear as day, and Mystico probably as well. What they should have done was run the Fletcher and Speedball match from Dynamite for the TNT title,
which was great.
Yeah. They could have just run it on the show, and it would have made perfect sense and been totally fine. Maybe we're getting Okada and Mystico on the back end of this, and that's the purpose. We'll find out. Tag team championships. FTR defending against the Young Bucks. On Dynamite, FTR and Ciampa beat Dem Bucks in the main event. Briscoe did his chair-assisted tope cannonball, always a great spot. FTR hit a spike pile driver of a Buck off the barricade into the announce table, another terrific spot. Ciampa ultimately hit an air raid crash on Briscoe plus a pump knee to get the win. This was a hell of a match, 4 stars, A-. I'm glad one of the challengers wasn't pinned on the go-home, though they did get absolutely decimated. Ciampa added an avalanche air raid crash into a pair of open chairs after the bell. That kept Briscoe kind of down at the end, and it allowed Ciampa to sell his psycho killer gimmick. Really, Briscoe should be out for at least a couple of weeks, if not a month, after that attack. In terms of this match, it's actually a tough prediction because the story that they're telling us with FTR attacking the Young Bucks family and then getting the best of them here, and the Young Bucks going back to their super kick party, old New Japan kind of gimmick, the story they're telling is for the Bucks to win the titles. But I cannot get it out of my head, no matter how hard I try. I cannot get it out of my head that FTR as champions against Adam Copeland and Christian Cage is the direction. And I could have sworn it was going to be, and that Adam and I always think Edge, then I try to remember what his actual name is. Cope and Christian winning the titles would make a lot of sense, be it in North Carolina or Canada or something like that. And you have FTR as the champions again. Are you really going to take the titles off of FTR, put them on the Bucks, and then bring back Cope and Christian on the back end? I don't really see that. I could see a situation where FTR cheats to win, Ciampa helps them, and then maybe Copeland and Christian return, and that's the build all the way to either Double or Nothing or All In. That to me would make a lot of sense. I have FTR retaining the titles here, but the confidence, as I said earlier, it's very low. I could see this switching easily.
Yeah, I could go either way too. I don't know if you've followed, but the Bucks have brought back being the Elite.
I have not noticed that at all. No.
Yeah, and it's mostly just travel video blogs like they used to do. There's not big sketches and stuff like that anymore.
Gotcha.
And half of the episodes are basically just highlights of their matches. But it is part of what has gotten me back into AEW because it pops up on my YouTube feed. Mm-hmm. I still enjoy it, and I've liked them going back to the Super Kick Party gimmick and stuff. And I have wondered if part of that has been to start to rebuild the tag division. Part of kind of the process of them getting into this match was doing that as well. I'm going to go Bucks, but the Cope and Cage thing, as you said, is floating over my head. Now, that doesn't necessarily need tag team titles, but
it doesn't.
It would make a lot of sense.
I have a feeling you're going to be right on this one and I'm going to be wrong, but I've been talking about that feud for so long. wouldn't make sense for me to stick with that pick. Also, they introduced, I don't know if anyone noticed this, an updated AEW tag team title with new side plates. It is insanely ugly. The side plates are some of the worst things I've ever seen. The plates are FTR and the Bucks. So switching them and at the same time you're reintroducing the titles, maybe that makes sense. Toni Storm will fight Marina Shafir. Collision came back from commercial with Storm in the middle of a promo, seemingly challenging for this match. With everyone banned from ringside, she was angry after the mother's milk she got put in under the ring that I mentioned earlier. Toni said she would focus on winning back the title after vanquishing Shafir. Hopefully she sends her out of AEW entirely because this shit needs to end as soon as possible. This facade of Marina being a worthy competitor or someone who has improved and has a character, all she does is mean mug the camera, flick it off, say the word pussy, and beat up people. And the beating up of people isn't even that good. Toni, she is stuck in a rut right now doing the same character with the same promos. They got to figure out a way to refresh her. And I don't know what they need to do with Shafir. I don't think she's going anywhere, but I don't want her on my screen. This to me, I would be floored if in a clean match with everyone banned from ringside, there's any result other than Toni beating Marina. That is my prediction.
Yes, I'm with you. Toni wins as well. There's no reason to do anything else. Yeah, Toni wins. I like the stipulation everyone banned from ringside. I'd love to see that used more in wrestling sometimes, but no, Toni's the pick.
Next, we have Bandito versus Andrade El Idolo, which just has no build whatsoever. It's two great wrestlers who are going to be fighting each other on the card. What frustrates me so much about this match is that Bandito is the Ring of Honor champion. They have not mentioned his title in the build. It is not a title match. If you have a champion on a pay-per-view fighting a guy in Andrade El Idolo who is a top contender for the AEW title, why would this not be a championship match? I cannot answer that question.
You can ask me that 10,000 times, Cole. I'm never going to have an answer for you.
That also complicates the prediction here because there's only two different ways this can go. Obviously, one is Bandito winning because he's the ROH champion, and it would be weird to beat your champion for no reason whatsoever. The other is Andrade wins, and then on the back end gets an ROH championship match, or Andrade wins, and they just completely ignore it and treat us like morons, even though Bandito being ROH champion was something that was on television as recently as his feud with MJF. So I'm just flummoxed at how they can have this match and not have the title on the line, not even call it an eliminator match, which is something that would make sense because then Andrade, if he beat the champion, would have the opportunity to beat the champion.
To beat the champion, to be able to beat the champion. That doesn't make any sense.
Bandito was the guy who was being pushed extremely strong for a period of time until he lost to MJF. Andrade is the person who more recently has been booked extremely strong, but he lost the number one contendership. So this could really go either way, one would believe, but there's something about Andrade and his current run. It's really hot. It's going extremely well. That's why it's so disappointing to me that A, it's not a title match, and B, there is no storyline going into it, but it is also the reason why I'm picking Andrade to beat Bandito.
I'm going Andrade as well. Maybe you don't talk about the Ring of Honor title because you don't want to have to come up with an excuse it's not on the line, or you don't want Andrade to get into a Ring of Honor
they could
storyline.
Easily say, I know you're ROH champion. I don't want the title. I just want to beat the shit out of you. That's all you have to say.
Yeah.
They didn't even bother.
Maybe. Yeah.
Swerve Strickland is fighting Brody King. This one is almost as thin as Bandito and Andrade, but not as thin. On Collision, Swerve beat Gravity in 4 minutes for no reason whatsoever. The gimmick here is that he brutally dominated him. There was no promo afterward. On Dynamite, King won an unnecessary squash match, which allowed Swerve to choke him over the barricade with a chain after the bell. Brody snapped the obvious plastic chain in the ring, leading Shivani to suffer an aneurysm. He couldn't believe that this chain was broken. Swerve's reaction sold this, though. He scurried out of the ring. He was scared, but man, was it weak. After King tried choking Strickland over the ropes, Swerve snapped his arm and escaped. Now, considering the thin booking to this match, deciding who is the most dangerous man in AEW, that is the gimmick. There wasn't much else for them to do on the go-home show. They had each made their case previously, so it wasn't the end of the world that this wasn't strong, but nevertheless, it's the way I felt about it. seeing it, just wanting more, because they're both really big guys who have been booked well of late. What's interesting is this is kind of a parallel to Bandito and Andrade, because King is the one who was booked extremely strong. He's the one who had a match with MJF, beat him, earned a title match, and then lost that, right? Whereas Swerve was vying for a number one contendership like Andrade, also lost that, and he's in this match. So are they really going to take Brodito, who they were booking crazy strong over the prior 6 months, and have them both lose on this show because Andrade and Swerve are now the flavor of the day? They're the ones who are now getting booked strong. To me, that's exactly what's going to happen. On top of it, Swerve, weeks before this match began, introduced another new entrance theme in which it says that he's the most dangerous man many different times. So you're not going to have the guy who doesn't have a theme calling him the most dangerous man beat the guy who does have a theme calling him the most dangerous man. Swerve is winning this match, as is Andrade. Brodito is going down 2-0.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out why you booked this match. We don't get many of them in AEW, but is it possible we get like kind of a no-winner situation?
I don't think there's a time limit on this since it doesn't slot into any of those divisions.
Well,
I could see a no contest though. Sure.
Is there an interference? Like you probably don't want a Prince Nana interference ending a match, but that's the way WWE would book it if we had this match. That's what I'm trying to get out of my brain.
Well,
so
there have been some teases of Swerve maybe starting a group again, like Mogul Affiliates. We remember how much of a disaster that was. But yeah. Prince Nana was wearing a Mogul something towel like a month ago. So maybe, and then Swerve has been talking to Kevin Knight, I mentioned as well. So maybe he's going to start a group. They show up and interfere. Like, it's possible. But really, whether there's interference or not, Swerve should win this match.
I'm going to go Swerve as well, but I'm really wondering, like you said, maybe we get the debut of that here, and we either it's a Swerve win, but it's like an excused loss for Brody potentially.
We'll move over to the Continental Championship match. Jon Moxley against Konosuke Takeshita. Despite one of the whole points of the Continental title being time limits and everyone barred from ringside, there's going to be no time limit in this match, and everyone in theory is still barred from ringside. On Dynamite, Claudio and Jon Moxley beat Takeshita and Hechicero to open the show. I gave it relevancy credit for the same reason that I did the other match involving Takeshita, but this was the 37th 4, 6, or 8-man match involving these factions, with the combination of partners being completely random over the last few months. Claudio won with a poke to the eye and an inside cradle as Takeshita sat out ringside for like 5 minutes waiting for the match to end. Again, this is the CMLL champion taking an L earlier against Takeshita, now winning against Hechicero with an eye poke. 2 members of Don Callis' family, despite there being 72 of them, attacked after the bell. Lance Archer even hit Marina because, I guess, F women. Where were the rest of the Death Riders? We saw all of them before the match outside. They were nowhere to be found as their guys were getting attacked. Does that make a shred of sense? Of course it doesn't. We're talking about multiple minutes of attack and post-match where none of these guys came out completely unexplained. Takeshita refused to participate in the attack. He threw a steel chair away and even argued with his stablemates. He then eyed Mox, basically telling him he was going to beat him clean and take the title. Shafir flicked the bird because that's all she can do. It's too bad that they didn't run an actual Mox Takeshita storyline with promos and stuff between both of them, and they focused this whole thing on the factions rather than the 2 guys who had a great Continental Classic match, which is really the reason this is getting run back. Now, I cannot imagine we go through all of AEW Revolution without at least one title change, and it's why, thinking back on what I said earlier, the Young Bucks are probably winning those tag team titles. I'm going to kick my prediction because I gave it and I stay steadfast with that stuff, but there's got to be at least 1, if not 2 title changes on this card. And spoiler alert, I don't know that there's going to be more coming up. In terms of this match, it's going to be extremely curious to see how it's booked. Mox has been going on an extremely strong run from the Continental Classic outward with this title. Takeshita, there's clearly the Okada feud coming up. I presume that is going to be happening at All In. Do you really run back Okada as the international champion and Takeshita as the continental champion? Extremely similar to what they did with Okada and Kenny Omega, but with those 2 involved. I think you might. Mox holding this strap, it hasn't really done anything for the title. And because he just wins and open shows no matter what, I don't know that he needs it. So I'm going to have Takeshita in a match that, in theory, Don Callis family and everyone else should be barred from ringside, which means no screwdrivers, no interferences, etc. I'm going to have Takeshka beat Mox and become the new Continental Champion.
Well, the takeaway from Dynamite is like they're building up Takeshka really going face and leaving the Callis family. And that's supposed to be a moment. I mean, he was one of, if not the first person in the family. And, you know, that attack was all about honor. He wants to prove he can beat Moxley on his own. So maybe there is interference and Takeshka refuses to take advantage of it and it costs him or something. It like you said, if you're going to get into an Okada feud next,
that's a good point.
You got to turn him face here at some point. And I don't know how it impacts the winner of this match, but I don't know. Can you turn face and lose?
Well, you can. You definitely can. But do you think that what was done Wednesday was meant to turn him face on its own? That he already refused to beat him down. So going into the match, he's a tweener. And then when he comes out and it's clean, and let's say he wins, that he's a face.
Yeah, I think so. And maybe Callis tries to take credit for it and he kicks him or something.
Yeah, because Callis will be on commentary. So it's possible all the guys are sidelined, but Callis on commentary throws him a screwdriver, he throws it out of the ring, and then wins anyway.
Or he kicks Callis for trying to interfere in the match.
Right, something like that.
I think something like that. I'm going to go to Takeshka as well.
All right. Moving to the women's championship. Thekla will challenge Chris Statlander in a 2 out of 3 falls match. Stat has now totally done away with the alien shit.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
She wore sunglasses and leather, trying to look cool like Thekla, while cutting a real monotone promo, challenging to this stipulation, 2 out of 3 falls. This lasted like 20 seconds. Thekla, who wore a jacket that had the word biker literally in quotes on the sleeve, which was so weird, cut a promo on stage after the break, talking like she was completely intoxicated. No pun intended there. She asked, since when does the challenger pick the stipulation? Do you remember the entirety of this feud? Do you remember getting a rematch for no reason whatsoever from Stat? Nothing has made sense, Thekla, let alone the challenger picking this stipulation. And by the way, that also happens kind of in the men's feud as well. Thekla refused to do the 2 out of 3 fall stipulation, then turned on a dime and said, you know what? You can't pin me twice in one night. She called Stat out for trying to look like her and then closed by screaming, everything you're afraid of is everything I am. Now, I criticized this. That's an absolute killer final line. I love that. Everything you're afraid of is everything I am. That's incredible. The rest of the promo was rough as hell, and that's not even covering the holes in logic and absurdity of how this feud transpired. Stat getting so little time in her promo for me was quite telling. As I said, you don't switch this title to Thekla only to switch it right back to Stat. There was no reason for Thekla to get a rematch. You gave her the title because you feel like she's over and you want to run with her. And now you're setting up Stat in a situation where she loses a 2 out of 3 falls match and goes on another depression binge and has to get lifted up by Willow Nightingale, who she's still never really made up with, even though they're friends again. Like, that doesn't make sense. Or you have Thekla win this title and Stat just wins it back, and now Thekla is reduced back to the mid-card. Like, none of this works. I have to believe they're having Thekla retain. If not, and they had her win, put her over Thunder Rosa, and then had her lose right back, it is extremely similar to what happened with Drew McIntyre and Cody Rhodes over on SmackDown. The difference is Chris Statlander is no Cody Rhodes and Thekla is no Drew McIntyre.
I'm a Thekla fan, though. I
like
me
too.
Her and kind of what I like, kind of the edge she's brought. I've enjoyed her. I'm going to go retaining as well because, like you said, I think bouncing this back and forth doesn't help anything. The other thing I forgot to mention on the previous match, along with this card is going to take forever. Because we have a 2 out of 3 falls match. We have a no time limit match. We have a death match main event. We got some trios matches in there as well. It's going to be like, there's a lot of stuff that just naturally is going to go long on AEW pay-per-views that always go long anyway.
Yeah, to your point, the next match that we're going to talk about, I mean, I'll just get to it right now. The AEW Championship, MJF defending against Hangman Page in a Texas death match. Those are not short matches. I mean, You're looking at least 30 minutes. A lot of them go 45, 50. Obviously it's going to be extremely violent as well. And that's how you're going to close the show. It's clearly going to be the main event of the evening. So along with, to your point, the trios matches and the 2 out of 3 falls, which you can get one of those away pretty quick, but you still have to do 2 more usually, unless it's going to be a sweep, which is another thing. Mox and Takeshita, they are not going to shorten. Swerve and Brody, Bandito and Andrade, none of those are going to be short. FTR and Bucks. Like, this is going to be an absolutely massive long card. It's probably going until 12:30 is my guess, which makes it less likely that we're going to be able to do the instant analysis as soon as it is over. But let's get into the breakdown of this. As I said, MJF and Hangman, Texas Death. If Hangman loses, he has promised not to challenge for the AEW title again. They have made it decently clear that that is not a stipulation written into the contract. And that does factor into the match breakdown and my prediction at the end. There was a fully kayfabe press conference for this as the main event of Dynamite. Outside of the ring in another area of the venue, it was hosted by Bryan Danielson. The visual was not great, and Bryan didn't really clarify Hangman's stipulation. For some reason, AEW kept the arena audio playing, and fans were like booing and jeering and making noise. They were distracted as this was happening because they're watching the main event of the show on the big screen. It's not happening in front of them. This was such a poor production decision. Not doing the press conference or even doing it backstage, but allowing the audio to come through while it was happening. It was distracting. I could barely understand the answers they were giving, not because I couldn't hear them, but because there was other noise going on, and that noise was more interesting than what was happening. Hangman said the main event would be the most extreme thing fans have seen, a repeat of last year except bloodier.
No, don't like that.
MJF said he wasn't concerned about his 0-2 record against Page. Some of the people asking questions during this, claiming to be legit media but participating still, people who should be nowhere near a real or fake press conference, mind you, were embarrassing. And it ended with Page unable to answer a question about what he would be in AEW if he was not champion. MJF tried to hand Page a beer to toast him. Hangman smacked it out of his hand. So MJF threw the other in his face. They brawled into the arena. Page avoided a Dynamite Diamond ring punch. He hit Deadeye. MJF didn't come anywhere near touching the canvas. His head was at Hangman's ass, is how far up it was. And then he pulled out a barbed wire board. Hangman did, but MJF escaped. Over the last few weeks, we've discussed the absolutely ridiculous build for this match, from a stipulation announcement standpoint to finally coming around to it, but the whole setup not mattering. We've also discussed Hangman's overrated and really poor promos. This was a convergence of all of that in one. The brawl at the end was easily the best part. The rest of it was a total mess. It might have been palatable in the middle of the show. It was awful as the main event. Hangman showing dejection at the brief thought of losing. That was meant to be the linchpin of the segment. That would have worked far better in a sit-down interview, whether it was solo or face-to-face. The presser, it was just poor conceptually. Chris, did you get a chance to watch this whole thing?
Yes. I was like, if you don't want to do contract signing, you want to do something different, fine. But if you're going to do press conference, like, I don't know, better, even though they were clearly like kayfabe pre-written questions, like, I don't know, make them better. Like, if you're just going to kind of have generic stuff to get generic promos out of them, just do a face-to-face of some other kind. I wondered if this was at all like on the heels of the Ronda Rousey, Gina Carano press conference that happened earlier this week.
Mm-hmm.
It was strange, and it definitely did not, I think, and it did not amp things up in a way you would want to on the go home segment.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you're going to do something like this, and the concept isn't terrible, you got to have these guys going crazy at one another, and they should be getting angry and coming to blows over their words. Not here's a beer, slap it out of your hand. Oh, let's run to the crowd and stuff. It was really, really weak, all things considered. And for the go home segment for this, feud, it should have been better. It's as simple as that. Now, look, Texas Deathmatch. We have seen so many of these in AEW. I mean, it's just, the question is, what is going to happen here? Like, we've seen, and I know not all of these were Texas Death, but we've seen syringes in mouths. We've seen attempted drownings in fish tanks. We've seen staplers, barbed wire boards, bloodletting, forks, eating open wounds. Like, like, what's this going to be? I've said this before. At some point, you go so extreme. The only thing left is like knives and guns. And unless Hangman's going to stab MJF, is it going to be the most violent thing we've seen in AEW? Maybe they live up to that. Do I want it to be? I don't. I want wrestling.
No.
I want wrestling, man. And you know what? If it's extreme wrestling, I'm okay with that. It can be violent. It doesn't need to be overboard violent. So I hope
This happened.
Go ahead.
They do this on every AEW pay-per-view. I know, because I
know.
Come in for every pay-per-view, and there's always some match, often involving Darby Allin, that is just unnecessarily gory. And now you're doing it in the main event for your championship. I was at All In here in Texas last year. That was the main event of the show, was Texas Deathmatch. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't mean it loses meaning when you do it so much. 2 Texas Deathmatches in less than a year. Like, it feels like when they don't know where else to go with the story, they just go, all right, let's just add extra violence. And it's a very lazy way to do it. And the more you do it, the less it means. There's no way they can be more violent. And also, I don't want it to be more violent. Like, you got to lower the bar. I hate watching deathmatch wrestling. It just really makes me uncomfortable.
This is the
and to
third,
do it so much, do it in your main event. Come on.
This is the third Texas death match involving Hangman. I didn't even look about anyone else since last January. 3 times in 14 months. Okay. And he also had others with Swerve Strickland, obviously, the syringe one, Jon Moxley, Adam Cole, Lance Archer back in 2022. So this is the 7th Texas death match that Hangman Page is going to wrestle in less than 5 years. That's ridiculous.
Like, if you want this to be the Darby Allin mid-card thing, like he's Mankind or something back in the day, like, okay, that's one thing. This is your main event guy. This is pretty much kind of your face of the company guy, as you have determined, and this is what you want his thing to be. Just disgusting, bloody matches. I hate it for what it means. I hate seeing it so much. I hate it creatively. Like, you got to do. Also, you don't even need it. Mm-hmm. It didn't add anything to the show. It's not going to sell any more pay-per-views because it's a death match. Like, it's just wholly unnecessary, and that just kind of always sums up the way AEW often does stipulations, which are loaded throughout this card.
It could sell tickets and pay-per-view buys if we didn't see it so frequently. Because then it's an attraction. It's, oh my God, they're doing something different. This is going to be crazy. It's like when WWE brought back Hell in a Cell for CM Punk and Drew McIntyre. We said, oh my God, we haven't seen one of these. This one might actually be what Hell in a Cell is supposed to be, and it was. And now we know when Hell in a Cell comes back, wow, it's really going to deserve, whatever match it is really going to deserve it, which is why you and I criticize War Games. We don't need War Games every year because the feuds don't always necessitate War Games, right? It's okay to do a Royal Rumble or Money in the Bank or Elimination Chamber because there's reasons behind those. War Games, if there's not a storyline for it, like Texas Death, there's not much good reason. And in this case, Hangman already was the number 1 contender. If it was flipped and he was champion and MJF wanted an opportunity and Hangman said, okay, you want to fight me? It's a Texas death match then. Okay, now we're talking about it because he's giving a reason for allowing this person to contend. Hangman already had this match. And I'm not going to go through it because we spent so much time on the show with me criticizing the Texas death booking, but even more so, Hangman on his own volition, promising not to challenge for the AEW title again when he didn't need to do that. He was already the number 1 contender. I'm not going to go through it. Well, we could be here for another half hour. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The point I have is when you have 3 Texas death matches in 14 months, you have to, as a company, figure out a way to one-up yourself. And that does legitimately concern me coming into this. I will also note, I was incorrect earlier when I said that all Texas death matches go long. Last year's, or the last one, I should say, because there were 2 last year, the most recent one went 35 minutes true. Before that, I was looking at the times, 29, 22, one was 17 minutes. So they don't have to be crazy long, but in the main event of a pay-per-view, one of your signature pay-per-views, Revolution, Double or Nothing, All In, I got to believe it's at least 25, 26 minutes, probably 30, 35, 40. That's my guess.
Yeah, it's your main event, and it should, because that's the main event.
It's the main event. Yeah, every main event
one other thing
should be long. Yeah.
One thing, I did like the music video package for these two before the press conference. Like, that actually got me into it. I was like, all right, like, these guys, like, pillars of the company, similar guys, but also not. Like, there was, like, kind of a personality story there. And then when you're just throwing Texas Death on top of that, it's like, it's devaluing a story you could have told.
No, I totally feel you on that. In terms of prediction here. So, look, with the stipulation and Paige, and everyone is so shell-shocked, or they have PTSD, I guess is the better phrase, from Cody Rhodes doing the stipulation, right? And living up to it, and only being TNT champion in AEW back in the day. It tells you that Hangman Page is going to win the match, right? Except, to me, it doesn't. And it's because of the way they're booking it. It's not stipulated. It's not in a contract. He didn't sign his life away. He's just promising as a good guy, I'm not going to challenge for this title. Well, it's very easy to go back on your word. You just turn heel. And Hangman Page as a heel, frankly, for me, is either better or at least more acceptable, more palatable than him as a babyface. Because every single time it's him chasing the title and then he wins it and everything just collapses. The reason you book this match is not so much to give Page the title back. It's to give him a storyline that people are actually going to buy into so he can operate without the title for an extended period of time. It is also to give MJF a significant victory for a big match later in the year. And that big match that I presume is coming is MJF as champion against Will Ospreay in the main event of AEW All In at Wembley Stadium in London, England. And if you're going to get there, you ain't flipping the title here. So I have MJF retaining the AEW championship over Hangman in his signature match. It sends Page into a downward spiral. He didn't just lose the title. The stipulation that he self-imposed is on it. And he lost his signature match. All of that comes together. He turns heel, goes and does something else for a year plus, circles back around, becomes champion again. MJF walks out as the AEW champion.
I'm going MJF as well for the reasons that you said, which was...
I thought you'd go the other way.
Which is the I've been saying for more than a year, Ospreay wins your championship at All In. I wish it had been the one in Texas where I was. He would have been a good person to, beat Moxley and finish off the Death Riders, though not really. Didn't happen. So you come back around a year later, you've got the show in London. That's when you're going to do it. Who should Ospreay beat for his crowning achievement? It's MJF.
The biggest heel in the company. He's the biggest
heel in the company.
Yep.
He's one of the biggest guys, maybe the biggest guy in the company, your biggest heel. He is the person to beat for that championship. And for that to have additional meaning, it's got to be a good, healthy, long reign.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think you take it off him here, put it back on. It's too much. MJF retains and will eventually lose in the summer. What happens with Hangman? I don't know. He's got to have more than just, tough guy babyface versus spiraling underdog, spiraling heel. It's like the only things he's done. So let's find something else. I don't know. Like, we haven't gone back to, I don't think we've gone, has he been like a real tag team in a while? I know he's done some.
No, I mean, they were just trios champions, but no, not in like a real way. No.
Yeah. I mean, like in a real type of way where he finds somebody, heel or babyface, to start a new thing. Let's get Page onto something else at this point.
Hell, you could even, and it would be crazy, legitimately team him up with Swerve, who's gone back heel. And they do a 2-man power trip of every title except the main title. They win the tag team titles. I know you hate the double champions. I do too, but I'm just saying they win the Continental and International, or they win the TNT and the National. I mean, they have 5 men's singles titles. It's absolutely ridiculous. You could do something like that or just not, right? But the only other person who... there's 2 other people who Ospreay could fight in that match. One would be Kenny Omega, just because it's Kenny Omega and Will Ospreay.
Yeah.
But Omega's not going to be heel at this juncture in his career. That wouldn't make sense. The other is Swerve. But in order to get it on Swerve, you would have to still take it off Hangman or MJF. And to me, it doesn't make sense to change the title twice more to get there. To have Hangman win and then Swerve beat Hangman, and then it's too much. So that's the reason I see MJF retaining here. Yeah.
The other part, and I don't know if you mentioned it earlier in the show, but MJF and Kyle Fletcher backstage. What did you make of that?
It's weird, man. Like, they do so much heel interaction. One thing AEW does a great job with is making it seem like everyone wants the main title. And there's a lot of times where WWE does not do a good job of that. They have been recently, particularly on SmackDown. They've done a great job with it. But on Raw, it hasn't been fantastic in that way. AEW, they always have people eyeing the championship. And it could be dudes who are not factored into any plans, but there's a segment with MJF and whatever. I don't believe with Fletcher in his current role, he's a full heel, and he's friends primarily with Okada, who is a heel as well. And Takeshita's the face, who's looking to split away from that group. I don't think it would make any sense to run an MJF Fletcher title match, but AEW has done so many one-off title matches that just don't really make a lot of sense for what's currently going on in the company otherwise. So it's possible. I think it was more to show that despite MJF and the Don Callis family helping each other last week, that it is not something that's ongoing. And it's interesting to me that they would go to that length to show that and yet not build a segment for Andrade and Bandito. Like use the same time and just do something with those guys. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like MJF, Kyle Fletcher, it's hard to see how it happens heel versus heel unless, MJF loses his belt and he goes after the TBS title with Fletcher or something. It's possible. TNT is a possibility as well. Or does Fletcher just start helping MJF, helps him win this match, and they become kind of a bit of a two-man power trip, and that is the thing that brings Will Ospreay back. His connection to Kyle Fletcher and something off from there. I don't know. It could have just been two guys backstage, but it was obviously a very purposeful thing.
Oh yeah.
Unless it was just to talk about the Fletcher speedball match that was about to happen. So I don't know. It was hard to see where it goes, but it is something I'm keeping in the back of my head.
Sure. And then lastly, this isn't a match thing, but we mentioned Ospreay a few times. I do expect there to be at least one, if not multiple returns on this show. I could see them loading this up. I'm not even joking with 5 returns at AEW Revolution. Ospreay seems like a no-brainer, which is among the reasons, like I just said, I have MJF retaining the title. He could show up at the end of the show. There has been radio silence on Jay White, who has been out of action for 11 months with a hand injury. As we know with Bianca Belair, there's no telling how long he could be out or what's going on. But a year is a long time. And with All In coming up, it makes sense to potentially hold him and do a 1-2 return situation, kind of like they did with Adam Cole and Bryan Danielson debuting, but they used those two as consecutive returns. I could see that. Mercedes Moné and Kenny Omega are other options, particularly Omega after the end of Swerve's match, because they were kind of feuding and Swerve took Omega out. So Brody loses, but Omega comes to dominate Swerve. There's your feud there. I'd probably save Mercedes' return for TV, try to pop a rating. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, I have no idea whatsoever what's happening with those guys. If FTR retains and they confront immediately afterward, boom, you have a feud set for Double or Nothing or maybe AEW All In. There's other names I could mention as well, but those are the ones that stand out to me. I'm not going to tell you now because this happens with WWE. You expect someone to return or debut and they don't. Oh my God, it's such a bad show because it didn't happen. I will not feel that way, but I would be very surprised if we don't see at least 2 or 3 returns at Revolution, maybe more, as I just said.
Would make sense. That's a lot of guys.
It is. I know. All right. That wraps up the full breakdown of AEW Revolution from an ultimate preview standpoint. On the way out of the show, Vintage, we need to give some pre-show expectation grades. These grades are what we believe our final grades will be for AEW Revolution. All of you listening will have the opportunity to vote. Share both your pre-show and your post-show grades on social media at Getting Overcast. We post the poll on Twitter before and after AEW Revolution. You will have the chance to vote. Make sure you follow us at Getting Overcast for episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can vote in the polls. You can send in questions and comments for the show. And on YouTube, you can not only listen to the show, you can also watch full-length video interviews across the board at Getting Overcast. Vintage, what is your pre-show expectation grade for AEW Revolution?
Going to go with a B right down the middle.
Wow. Okay. I thought you were going to be a lot higher, actually.
85, I guess. B 85, right in the middle of a B there. It's just, it would be higher if there weren't so many matches. It's always my thing with AEW. Is that if you cut a third of it, you're looking at maybe an A- type of show. But the other thing weighing it down is the stipulation of the main event that I hate. It's just something that always bothers me, that hurts my expectation and excitement for me personally. think there's some stuff on here that's going to be fun. Think we're going to have good wrestling. Usually do. It's just so much stuff and stipulations that are going to take a long time. I worry the show is going to drag.
Yeah, our show grades are different from match grades, right? We don't grade the shows based on, oh my God, was there absolutely incredible work rate wrestling. I have no doubt this is going to be a banger show from an in-ring quality standpoint. I mean, just going over the card, MJF and Hangman, great wrestlers. Thekla and Stat should be fantastic. I don't like FTR and the Bucks. A lot of people do, so I understand. Mox and Takeshita, amazing match, I'm sure of it. Bandito and Andrade, Swerve and Brody King, same thing. I have no doubts about any of those. At the same time, from a storyline standpoint, from a booking standpoint, will all of those tenets hit along with the in-ring quality? If I was basing it on in-ring alone, I'd give it a pre-show expectation grade of an A. But there's so many other issues I have coming into the show, and my expectations are relatively, I don't want to say low. They're not low. They're muted for the way I believe the booking will go on the pay-per-view itself. I am going to be way higher than you, though. I'm trying to decide between two different grades. I'm going to go in an 89 B+. I'm really close to an A-. Expectations
it's
going.
It's not that much higher than me.
Yeah, you're a flat B. I'm a high B+. It's for us, it's pretty significant. Dude, for considering how many of these we've done and we've been one number apart, to be 4 apart is pretty significant on this show. Let's be honest about that. So I'm coming in with a B+ expectation. I don't see a ceiling higher than a low A, but you never know, because again, the wrestling is going to be so high quality that if they get the booking right, if the returns pop, if they actually happen, it's going to be a huge crowd, 10,000 people. It's going to be their biggest show in a long time. It's possible that AEW Revolution is incredible. It's also possible, as Chris said, that the main event is unnecessarily violent. There's excused losses and kind of crap booking throughout the show. And we come through here at the end and we go, yeah, you know what? Great wrestling. Not a great show, all things considered, but that is what the instant analysis is for. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it ends at 1 a.m. And as I mentioned earlier, Vintage wasn't on the program yet. With Selection Sunday and Silver King needing to work, I have no idea when I'm going to be able to watch it. I will not be able to start live. And when I'm going to be able to finish it, and when we're going to be able to tape this program. So based on how tired I am, I certainly could be affected in terms of my enjoyment level. I try not to let that happen, but we're all human and nature does take its course. Vintage, anything else you got on the way out of here?
No, it's been interesting kind of popping back into AEW. I just think a lot of the same issues that I've had in the past are still there. Too many titles, too unnecessarily violent. Just so much going on. I still think they would benefit from being a bit tighter, especially applies to the pay-per-views, but it's what they are. In AEW, in 2025 into 26 has been much better than it had been in 24. So still doing all right.
I will say this also. It has been 3-ish months since there's been an AEW pay-per-view. My palate is cleansed. Like when they're doing it every month and it's these long ass cards, it really becomes like overkill and annoying. I say the same thing about WWE. Don't forget when they shove those Saturday night's main events into all this other stuff and you're looking at it and you're like, we just got 5 matches here, 6 here. You're telling all these storylines. It's so confusing. Not having an AEW pay-per-view in January and February, I am a lot more excited for Revolution than I would be if this was the third one we had in the last 3 months. So,
and we didn't, even just today, they announced another Saturday night's main event, which I think is the week after Backlash in May. So
I think it's a couple weeks after Backlash. I could be wrong about that, but you're right. It's another event, and it's just like, why? But the difference is, I will say, to be fair, I guess, to WWE, although not fair to us as viewers and consumers, the cards are so short that it's not like they're giving us a, 10-match Backlash card and then giving us 5 matches at Saturday night's main event. They're going to give us 5 and then another 3. So it really makes up one pay-per-view when you think about it, but it's nights that we have to work and do the show. And WWE needs to book separately because it is staggering them as opposed to doing it all at once, which is what AEW is doing here. All right. That wraps up this edition of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. As I mentioned, we will have an AEW Revolution instant analysis show coming for you either super late Sunday night, Monday morning, or at some point earlier on Monday before the afternoon. It's going to completely depend on when Silver King gets home, when I'm able to watch the show and tape it. And there is also, I didn't even realize this, the first half, I believe, of the AAA Rey de Reyes show. That's going to happen Saturday at 10 p.m. Eastern. So it's going head-to-head with the end of AEW Revolution. Depending on how things work out and depending on what happens during that show, maybe Silver King tapes something on that late Sunday and then saves my energy to do AEW Revolution since it's such a bigger show. On Monday, one way or another, this will be covered. Stick with us for deep analysis of AEW Revolution. Let me remind you on the way out here at Getting Over.
It's all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Leave a 5-star rating. On Apple, take a little extra time. Leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And do not forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
Hope you do as well. For $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Support us as we continue delivering performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. On behalf of Vintage Chris Vanini, this is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.